Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Podcast. Fitz and Gills and Coles, the usual trio here for you this week. Gills is back from vacation. We're not going to say where he was, why, and what he was doing, hanging out and doing nothing. Oh, in Hawaii. How was it, Gills? Was it? You look how tan you are, man.
Thank you. It was fun. It's good to be back, though. It was a good time, though.
Mm-hmm. Cole, you didn't go to Hawaii, I can tell.
No.
But football camp. Did we ever hear of much coming out of that football camp, Cole?
From everything I've seen, there was 0 offers that was out of that camp, which, if you've been following, not too surprised. Who knows what the camps are going to look like in the future with the 105, but there has been some news on the recruiting front, which if you love that, maybe we'll get into that on a separate podcast.
That's right. Cole and I will be doing a separate football recruiting podcast. This one will be public, so no in-depth analysis, but we'll go through everything that's happened and the interesting development that out of the 7 K-State commitments, 4 are offensive linemen. So we're going to get into the offensive line quite a bit on that. That's later this week on the PowerCat Podcast. But this one is going to be all about football, not really recruiting that much. And we're sponsored by Helping Hands Home Improvements or Remodeling right here in MHK. Check out Gabriel's work. You can give him a call. You can find him on the internet. Helping Hands Remodeling does bathroom and decks and a little bit of everything. If you need some work on your house, your rental, your Airbnb, Ryan Gilbert's apartment, maybe the bar that Ryan Gilbert frequents, call Helping Hands Remodeling. Ryan Gilbert could use some remodeling himself. Not his apartment. His apartment's lovely, I'm sure.
It's good. It's tidy, and I don't need any remodeling on my tan. Right?
It looks good, man.
Well,
I bet you your dog at home
on Spotify or Apple don't know what we're talking about.
Right.
But if you're on YouTube, you see.
Is your dog at home a little jealous of you?
Tanner.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
I need to go pay a visit to Kansas City and obviously see Tanner, but more importantly, go see Mr. Carmody.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. Let's get going with your questions from Wabash Station. That's how this game works. If you're a subscriber at GoPowercat.com, and by the way, we're 60% off right now. That sale snuck up on me. Didn't even know we were going to do one. But here we are, 60% off right now for an annual subscription at GoPowercat.com. Go check that out and get behind the paywall where you can see all of Cole and the other guys' great recruiting coverage, along with Gilbert's recruiting coverage, along with I don't even know what I do around here. I don't know, but I'm there too. Make sure you're subscribing to GoPowercat.com. It's going to be a really fun football season. So take advantage of 60% off right now. Here we go. Your questions from Wabash Station. And if you subscribe, you can be the next question. Well, not today. Is this Mr. Paints? I like that. That's a new one for me. I don't remember reading that. Last year's football team was fortunate against KU, Colorado, and Rutgers. The fine line between 9-4 and 6-7 was razor thin. I don't think they were really that close against Rutgers. Is there a humility with this year's team? Look, Rutgers, granted the game was close, but I thought K-State was the much better team in that. Guys, let me start here. That's football in the Big 12. You're going to play a lot of close games. And yeah, you're close to 6 and 7 or whatever you want to say, but you weren't. That's the point. You're the team that wins. And the margin between success and error in the Big 12 is really thin. I mean, look at University of Kansas. They were better in almost every game early on, but made a critical turnover and lost. That was still a good football team, as you mentioned there in your question, but they kept finding ways to lose games. And that's just how the Big 12 plays out in so many contests. Out of those games, Colorado was a really good football team. I personally think Colorado might have been better than Kansas State when they played. Kansas State just found a way to win. I thought they were better than Rutgers. They had to adjust to being the team that they were in the bowl game and not the regular season. Kansas is a concern. I'm very concerned about that game this year because seems like they get a little bit closer every year, and there's not much more margin for error for Kansas State. But Cole, give me your thoughts on this question. Is there a reason for concern here? What's your thoughts?
Well, we can say that the line between 6-7 and 9-4 was razor thin, but if we're going to have that kind of history, we need to go back and we need to look at Iowa State and Kansas State was a one-score game. That was a 29-21 game. K-State had plenty of opportunities in that game to tie it at the very end of the game. Let us not forget that. Potentially even take the lead late in the game. The home game against Arizona State, 10-point game. That's a 2-possession game. They, again, had an opportunity to get back into that game in the fourth quarter. And, of course, the Houston game, 24-19, that K-State lost. We all know K-State very easily could have won that game as well. And so, yeah, I mean, we can sit here and we can play that game. They were close to being 6-7. They should have been 6-7. And I think if you're looking at it from that perspective, sure. But they won some close games and they lost some close games. That's probably how the season was supposed to have, worked out in the first place. And so to answer this question, is there humility with this year's team? I think they understand that they can be beaten, but I also think they understand that they feel like they're better than every team that they're going to play against. And that's key if you want to, have success as a football team, is you have to believe in yourself. And I think this team, this program, they believe that every time they step on the field, they're better than their opponent. And there's something to be said for that. They respect their opponent, but they believe that they should win every single game they play.
Right. And you know what, if you take that whole argument, you change about, 13 plays against BYU, they win.
In the first half.
Yeah, well, I mean, not just plays. You change mistakes and bad breaks and lucky breaks for it's it just all adds up. Gil's thoughts?
Yeah, there is something to be said for winning close games, right? Like that is going to carry over and breed into your locker room kind of the belief that you can go win a game. You're going into the fourth quarter, you're tied. You've been here before. You've done that, and honestly, guys, the KU game, Kansas State was fortunate to come out on top in that game. But Rutgers, Colorado, Kansas State was, maybe the better team, maybe made more plays, and there was nothing maybe fluky about that one. So, or those ones. I understand with KU, I get that. But by and large, man, ebbs and flows of a season, you're going to win close games, you're going to lose close games. But, for looking forward, take KU as a great example. Like you mentioned, Fitz, they don't know how to win those close games, right? You're going to feel much better about Kansas State in 2025 with a returning quarterback, right? Because they have been there. They've done that in those close one-possession games. They know how to win.
And the difference between K-State and KU right now and last year was that KU was constantly losing games in the fourth quarter. They had the lead, and then the 15s went down to 0 at the end of the third quarter, and then the 15 popped back up for the fourth quarter, and everybody on the Kansas sideline said, here we go again. It's a one-score game. It's the fourth quarter. How are we going to lose this one? And so that's what they did against K-State, and everyone on the K-State sideline, A, knew that, and B, knew, okay, we've been here before. We can do this. And give credit to Chris Tennant for making the biggest kick of his college career at K-State. I don't think folks are going to remember much about Chris Tennant's career at K-State besides that game. They're going to remember that kick against Kansas.
Man, if you go into the fourth quarter or the final minutes of any sport you're playing and you're thinking, are we going to blow it again? Yeah. The answer is yes. Probably yes. You just can't have that come into your head. That here we go again is a self-fulfilling prophecy often. And you end up blowing games because you've done it before and you keep proving you can do it. It's that is maybe the hardest obstacle to overcome in a rebuild is building that belief that you're going to win. And Lance Leipold has done that at Kansas for the most part. But last season, we saw those mistakes creep in. And maybe I'm not throwing him under the bus here, but it was usually Jalen Daniels making the mistake. If he cleans that up, I think Kansas is going to be really good. Mm-hmm. Next question. Legacy Cat, for the program to be competitive consistently at the highest level in the new Big 12 and nationally, does Cole really not believe the blue chip ratio is necessary? Ooh, a shot across Cole's bow. I almost said bowels, which is very different than a shot across a bow. I am a mess today. Cole, talk about the blue chip thing.
So I think I know where this question is coming from. We had a thread on Wabash Station that dealt with offensive line play and the recruits that K-State's getting for offensive line. And really, I think what this stems from is me saying that Kansas State develops offensive linemen. And I believe they develop offensive linemen. It doesn't take a genius to go back and look at what Connor Riley did with that offensive line. Did he have some good guys that he inherited? He did. But all of the guys that he groomed, all of the guys that he prepared to play at K-State ended their career better than when they started. And I think K-State's offensive line each year has had more talent go through year after year after year. Save last year. You lose Cooper Beebe. Obviously, that's going to be a hole you have to fill, but I thought they got better. So that's where I think this question comes from. But asking about the blue chip ratio, for those that aren't familiar, basically what they say is the more blue chip players you have, the more 4- and 5-star recruits you have on your roster, the more likely you are to make the new college football playoff and win a national championship. Yes, I think you have to have good players to win a national championship. I just don't think you have to get those players out of your high school class because the transfer portal has changed absolutely everything.
I agree with that. Gills, that's a great point. Bill Snyder took this program to the brink of playing for a national championship. And in fact, I'll have a Deep Purple later this week based on some research by Powercat Ryan on X. Brilliant research he did. Kept sending me more and more. I'm like, holy cow. That K-State was so close to probably being regarded as a huge brand, and I'll roll out that evidence because it's amazing, but they didn't get over the hump. They didn't win that national championship. They didn't get to the game, but he did it without 5-star players. Hell, he did it without 4-star players. And how? Has the game changed that much? No. Well, it has, but not really how he went about it, in that his cheat code was junior college. And back when he was doing this, that didn't work. You did not do that. You couldn't trust junior college players to come in and play significant roles. Well, he changed everything. He changed the college game because now everyone realized you can win with junior college players, when he almost played for a national championship after signing a group of guys in 1997 that ended up being Michael Bishop and Brian Hanley and just a bunch of badasses. Yeah, Brian, I put you in there. He showed that there was a different way to do things, and other people started doing that. Now it's no great secret that you can get there through the transfer portal, but there is a different avenue than just getting those kids out of high school. In fact, Kansas State now has another really highly regarded recruit on its team who just bounced back from Alabama. I mean, he in the past would have had to go to junior college to transfer then to another school, but now he can come straight in from Alabama. And so I'm gonna cut this baby in half, though, and say you have to get more guys like Lincoln Cure. Particularly, I'm just beating this drum to death at defensive tackle. If you're gonna play a 3-man front or a 4-man front, I don't care. You got to be more depth, and you got to have a badass at nose tackle or over the ball. You just do. And you know what? K-State did in those teams. So it's I think you got to bring in better players, but there's more than one way to do that.
Angle I would take, you can compete at the highest level in the Big 12 regardless of the recruits you get. I mean, the Big 12, there's just no, at this point in time, there's no big dog that you have to be scared of, just in terms of getting 4- and 5-star guys like maybe OU or Texas were just a couple of years back. But I mean, guys, you look at not just the Big 12, but nationally, right? To get to that college football playoff, Arizona State's a great example that you don't have to be getting the best players. Winning the Big 12 last year, the last 2 seasons, or the last 2 recruiting classes, I guess I should say, Kenny Dillingham's had 1 4-star in each class. That's it. In 2025 now, again, he has 2 4-stars, maybe building off some momentum from last year, sure. But, you know, you can get to the college football playoff, guys. And remember, take Texas down to the wire in overtime and nearly beat an SEC powerhouse, right? So you can absolutely get there and compete at the highest level without getting the highest rated recruits out of high school. You can absolutely get there. So I'm with Cole, maybe to a different extent or to a different degree, right? Maybe a different angle there. But at the end of the day, you do not have to have that blue chip, that highly touted blue chip ratio.
And here's what I'm looking at, guys, is I go back and I look at this transfer portal class for K-State in 2025. And again, how we evaluate transfers, do we count transfers as blue chip players? Because Fitz, you brought up Jay Sean Ross. He was at Alabama for 1 year, and his ranking went down from a 4-star recruit out of high school to a 3-star player in the transfer portal. Like, to me, if he was a 4-star coming out of high school, why is he not a 4-star
after one season? I agree with that.
So that doesn't make a lot of sense. So to me, if we're going to talk about blue chip players, well, let's just go down the line. K-State added five 4-star recruits. If they would have been out of high school, 5 of them. So 5 players out of the transfer portal who had 4 or more stars coming out of high school in this transfer portal cycle. And then you count Lincoln Kira, who obviously was a 5-star kid. Noah King, who I don't think made it to a single practice at K-State, was a 4-star kid. So you really have 6 guys who you're adding to your quote-unquote blue chip ratio, but they don't count because they're not out of high school, right? So I have some issues with that, because I think, are you elevating the floor of your program by getting these guys? You 100% are. And so yeah, K-State is adding 4- and 5-star recruits, even though it might not look like it just on the surface.
Guys, there's a lot of podcasts about college football recruiting, and I'm going to ask a question that honestly nobody else is brave enough to ask. And this is the kind of stuff you get from me as a journalist. Blue chips. How do you feel about those for nachos?
I knew it was going to be something stupid, Cole.
I thought it was going to be the cookie place.
I kind of like blue chips, but I'm kind of just give me corn chips that are supposed to be colored like corn. Unless it's blue corn, I guess.
That's a great segue to the next question.
Okay, here we go. From Domercat. Excuse me. My goodness. I love K-State football, but feel I probably have missed my chance to see them play for a national championship. Please tell me whether I'm right or wrong in your opinion. Domer, this is a great question. Was that the question you were thinking, Cole?
I was looking at the next one, but this is better.
Okay. We'll do this one, then we'll go back. We'll pretend none of that segue didn't happen. Domer, in the current existence of college football, you're right. You probably are. The funding issue, if the Big 12 and ACC don't solve this soon, or at least close the gap in some meaningful way, it's only going to get worse. However, I'm also a believer that, and I've seen this around college athletics, we worry about this budget, but we've never used it as a crutch before. Kansas State had a budget at one point, probably a third of the Texas athletic budget, and yet was beating the Longhorns on a regular basis in football. Certainly smaller than Oklahoma. It was one of the smallest in the Big 12, and yet they were playing big-time games. So maybe this whole funding thing is just, there's some tangible evidence to it, but also maybe it just is kind of a mental game as much as anything else, because I can see those athletic departments wasting a lot of money on too much staff. K-State runs a really lean ship. We're already seeing budget cuts at Oklahoma and places like that. So I'm not sure that the budgetary issues are that big a deal as of now, but as it wears on through the years, you think it's going to add up. But the Big 12 has to get a team. Follow me here. They have to get a team that breaks away. Someone in the Big 12 needs to break from the pack. And maybe this season. That clearly is playing better than the other 15 teams. Now, my preference would be K-State because that's fun to cover, but it doesn't matter. Someone needs to set the pace at a higher rate than what we're seeing right now, period. And not run away from everyone, but make everyone pursue harder. Oklahoma and Texas provided that, primarily Oklahoma for a lot of years. K-State used Oklahoma as its measuring stick. It passed them. Oklahoma caught back up and won a national championship, and then it pursued them all the way to the last days they were in the Big 12, trying to match their level of play, and damn it, they did for the most part. Not at the highest levels, but I always come back to this, and it still pisses me off. Kansas State loses in overtime in the Big 12 championship in 98 and falls to the 5th bowl at the time for the Big 12. They lose in overtime, a one-score game, and they fall not just out of any chance of playing for a national title, but even a meaningful bowl game. 5 years later, Oklahoma gets absolutely destroyed by Kansas State in that same game, and they play for the national championship. That's the difference between being Oklahoma and Kansas State, right there. You're given the benefit of the doubt with that OU on your helmet that you're not with the Powercat. And honestly, that's true for most programs that aren't those blue bloods. But they can get there. They're going to have to improve their depth and start picking their way through this. Now, the problem is Greg Sankey's made it very clear at a 4-team playoff, the Big 12 was hardly ever going to be in that selection. He was going to cook those books. So in some ways, going to 16 helps the Big 12 and also hurts the Big 12 because now instead of winning a couple games, you got to win 4. And that's a lot of attrition. Thoughts?
So I look at Notre Dame this year because the question is not, do you think Kansas State can win a national championship? The question is, do you think Kansas State can get to a national championship? I think those are two incredibly different questions, guys. Like, I think if Ohio State taught us anything, it's from this year, it's that you can get to a national championship, but just because you're there doesn't mean it's not like the Super Bowl, right? Like I feel like every year the Super Bowl, Ryan, I'm going to go gambling expert here, is about a 1 to 2 point spread. Well, that's not what the spread was in the national championship game. So the question is, can K-State get to a national championship game? Yes. And quite honestly, guys, I look at Notre Dame's road. They hosted an Indiana team who I think everyone believed benefited from a really good schedule. Indiana was a good football team, but they got to where they were because they had a really, really favorable schedule. Well, Notre Dame took care of them in a home game. And then they went and played Georgia, a Georgia team who, like we said, had they lost that game to Georgia Tech, they might not even get into the playoff. And so they ended up beating Georgia. Credit Notre Dame in that game. But I don't think that Georgia team was as good as other Georgia teams of the past. Like, insert Arizona State. Does Arizona State beat Georgia? I think the answer to that question is yes. And then you go down the line. Really, the question is, you get a thriller over Penn State in the semifinals. And then we know what happened in the national championship game. So, like, Notre Dame's road, I don't want to sit here and poo-poo Notre Dame's success, but it wasn't the stuff of legends. I mean, Notre Dame was not an incredible football team. We've seen a lot better teams make the college football playoff championship game and lose. We've seen better teams lose in the finals. I don't think Notre Dame was amazing. I don't even know if they were the second best team in the country. I think they got hot and they started to figure it out at the end of the year. Let's not forget, this is the same team who lost to Northern Illinois at home, right? So I say all this to say that should give you reason for optimism. Did Notre Dame, does it go back to the blue chip ratio? Sure it does. But their blue chip ratio is a lot closer to K-State's than some of these other blue chip ratios. And so I do think that if K-State, if the stars align and they are playing well at the end of a season, they can reel off 3 wins in a row. I really do believe that.
Going off of that too, Cole, I mean, you mentioned 2024 runner-up. Back in 2022, I understand TCU got blown out, but the question is playing for a championship, not winning it. TCU was right there. And I understand college football has changed drastically a lot in the last couple of years, but let alone the fact that K-State beat that TCU team in the Big 12 championship. But TCU was there. I mean, guys, give me one difference. Name one thing that TCU has or had at that time that K-State doesn't or did have. No. You can get there.
Yeah. I mean, and I just saw this on X again, and I look, I'm no defender of TCU typically, but when people make fun of TCU getting blown out by Georgia, they beat Michigan to get to that game.
Yeah.
So let's not pretend that they were a total fraud.
Right.
Because if you're going to do that, then what was Michigan?
Right.
I mean, they ran out of gas. There's no doubt. They played a really good Georgia team, but Max Duggan was done. And he was the heart and soul of the team. And when your heart's done, you're done. He was beaten. All the snot got beat out of him against Kansas State. It added up against Michigan, and then he was a shell of himself in that national championship. So there, I defended TCU. Blah. But you're right. It is possible. You can beat these teams. Lining up more of them makes it more difficult, but it does that for everyone.
Yeah.
Ohio State, for most of the year, was a wildly talented, but not particularly great football team. They were good. They were really good. And the talent all showed out at the end, but you can find that next gear as a football team and play better.
And upsets. I know nobody wants to talk about that, but upsets happen in this new format. And it's not going to benefit the team who's upsetting the team. It's going to benefit the team after. So if K-State is a 4 seed and the 12 seed beats the 5 seed, the odds of that 12 seed winning another game are not as high. And
right.
So it would give K-State a little bit better chance to go on a run.
UMPC over Virginia in 2018.
Thank you. Exactly.
K-State.
Yep.
I already put the question up because I did it prematurely.
Go right ahead.
Okay. El Camino Cat. He's in every podcast. He just asks us good questions. How many teams should be in the college football playoff, and how should those teams be selected? This is not a prediction of what you think will happen, but your opinion on what would be best. That's a great question. I am in favor. If you're going to have double digits, go to 16. I mean, get rid of the buys. And here's why I say that. It's not about, inequity or what, the buys lost all the game. I don't care about that. It gets more teams involved, but just stop and think about that first weekend of playoff games. You're going to have 8 meaningful, big time football games on that weekend. I'm not sure in terms of television viewing, we will have ever seen anything like that weekend. The bowl games were never that way. You never had 8 meaningful bowl games, right? Never. If you go back in time, you had 4 at the most because that's all the big games you had. Then the Fiesta Bowl nosed in there. Maybe you had 5. There's going to be 8 games that mean something. Yeah, one of them will be a 16 seed against a 1 seed on their home field. But still, that 16 seed got in the field. And even if it's Boise State, well, we've seen the history of teams like that winning games.
Yep.
That's what makes this exciting to me. So I'm in favor of 16. I personally am in favor of 5 plus 11, even though everyone else seems to be against it, because as the Big 12, I don't want a crutch. But also, I share the fear that from everything Greg Sankey is saying and how he's acting, he is absolutely seeking to corrupt the process in his favor. There's nothing in this that Greg Sankey sees as fair and equitable. He wants to cook the books in favor of the SEC. It's disgusting. It's awful. And until he backs off of that nonsense, I don't think you go to 5 plus 11. He is telling you right now he's going to screw this up in the favor of the SEC. He's broadcasting it. So I'm a little uncertain about that. But yeah, 5 plus 11. And honestly, I would love that open sourced algorithms did this. So there wouldn't be any great misunderstanding of where we're going if they're open source. People could run the algorithms at home. Maybe you keep one back that isn't. I don't know. So you have a little bit of question about what's going on here. But I really feel like you need to come to an agreement on how to measure this and remove the human element, because humans are weak and pathetic. One person in there can bully 3 others to vote in their favor, and boom, all of a sudden you've got a 6th SEC team in the field. This is what I really fear, is that the people making the selections really aren't qualified to make the selections. A lot of ADs have a football background, but not all. And here they are picking the best football teams. I'm not sure I've covered football my entire life. Am I? I don't think I'm good enough to do that. I think it's got to be, if you're going to have humans, it's got to be ex-coaches. Mm-hmm. It just has to be. And not just Division I. I'll take some Division II and III coaches on that committee because they know good football. And they can see that, oh, this team might not have the talent, but I don't want to mess with them because they execute so well. The only thing the committee filled with AD sees is, look at how big they are. They look good. You got to get away from the human element as much as possible. But if you are, you got to go to a more educated human element in the game of football. So, I'm not comfortable with saying you get 4, you get 4, you get 2, you get 2. Because what did you just do for the entire span of this time that you're going to have this playoff format? You have put in writing that the ACC and Big 12 are just half as good as the other two. And I don't think as the Big 12 or ACC, you want to say that. And I think that's where Brett Yormark is. Brett Yormark, you have to find a way to secure the process. Undoubtedly. And if you get that, then yeah. And I just had a dog throw up. Okay. That's good. So that's where we're at. And someone take over. I'm going to go tend to this.
Dude or Daphne?
Daphne.
Of course.
I am going to say something very controversial, Gilbert.
Go for it.
And Fitz is going to be shocked when he's cleaning up the throw up as he's listening to this. But I've been thinking about this a lot, and I wanted to say 4 when I first saw this question, because I do think that the 4-team college football playoff had the 4 best teams in the country playing each other. But in order to make sure that everybody feels included, it's 5. If you're listening, I'm holding up my hand. It's 5. It's pretty simple. You got your 4 conference winners: ACC, Big 12, SEC, Big 10. There's 4 right there. The 5th one's going to be the group of 5. We need to make the conference championship games matter. If your conference is that good, SEC, you should win the national championship every single year. Your conference championship game should be the de facto national championship game. So why don't we make it an actual big thing? Right now, we just play these championship games for no reason. Let's make these championship games matter. In essence, they turn into another playoff game. Well, guess what? The top seeded conference champion would be the number 1 seed, and they would get a bye. Or not really a bye. They would just have to wait, because the group of 5 and the lowest seeded Power 4 conference champion would play a playing game. And whoever wins that game makes the Final 4. Well, then in the Final 4, you have the 1 playing the 5/4 and the 2 playing the 3. And whoever wins those games meet up in the national championship game. Now, it would never happen because A, nobody asked me, but B, it would never happen because these conferences just want to line their pockets with money. And unfortunately, we take away games by doing that. But to me, it's a really, really easy idea. It's a way to make sure everybody's included, and it makes the regular season matter. What say you, Gilbert?
I tend to agree with you, and I'm not maybe as adamant with conference winners and buys and seeding, and I don't have a strong take in that regard. But, guys, I'm a big NFL fan, and the NFL and college football are apples and oranges in terms of the weight of every game. And you can go 10-7 in the NFL, and you're still going to have a chance at the playoffs in the Super Bowl. Whereas traditionally, college football was you lose a game and you're pretty much toast. 2 games, you're out. You're absolutely out of it. But you pretty much have to run the table. You have maybe 1 slip up if you're a really good team. And we've gotten so far away from that. And college football, that's what college football to me kind of made it so special, was that every game was just so important. And now you can go, you can lose 2-3 games and still squeak in there. Just in terms of the tradition of college football, it doesn't sit right with me. So if it was up to me, I would go, 4, maybe 5, like you said, Cole, but I would make sure that every game means so much. Whereas now games just don't mean as much anymore in this current landscape of college football. And that's just personal opinion. You can disagree with that. I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but college football and the NFL, they're supposed to be 2 totally different things, where, now college football is kind of leaning towards the gravity of each game just doesn't mean as much.
That was well said.
Thanks, Fitz. How was the vomit?
It smells great in my studio right now.
Great. Man, every day, every time we podcast, there's always a new reason why I'm thankful that we are not at Fitz's and we're virtual.
That one was a doozy. Right as I'm in this impassioned speech about whatever I was talking about.
Didn't pick up on the mic at all.
Didn't you?
Oh my God.
No idea.
If anyone wants some dog food, I have some fresh-ish in the office. One last question. Be quick with this, boys. I kind of want to steal this for DD, but I will put it up here. TDE 67, play the devil's advocate. And we know Ryan Gilbert is literally that. How could the SEC leaving the NCAA help K-State moving forward? This is the great hypothetical question of the current condition of college football. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. If the SEC leaves, okay, two scenarios here. Greg Sankey said, my ADs are asking me, why are we still in the NCAA? Why don't we just leave? So he said, yeah, it's a great question. Maybe we should leave. We're better than everyone else. So what if the SEC leaves on their own? What if the SEC leaves with the Big Ten? I think those are two different things. I don't know that the SEC would do it without the Big Ten. Some people think the Big Ten is just playing coy and letting the SEC take the bullets. I think the Big Ten's being hesitant. And I don't know if we want to go, because right now, Greg Sankey to the rest of us is coming across like a madman. The SEC's like, yeah. They remind me of folks in Germany around 1939. But, I just called someone Hitler. I did it. It feels good. It does. It feels good just to do it. But I got to say, if the SEC leaves on its own, Cole, do you want K-State to compete at the highest level possible or rule a middle level between the FBS Super Conference and the FCS? FBS light, I don't care what you call it, that middle thing. Would you rather K-State compete at the highest levels against Ohio State, Alabama, all these huge budgets, Texas, or you have an existence in the middle where you might be the boss?
Again, it depends on if the Big Ten leaves. I think if the SEC leaves, I don't think the Big Ten's going. I just don't. I just don't.
I'm going to get that vibe.
So to answer this hypothetical, I'm going to say that the SEC goes off by themselves, and the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12 are still in the NCAA. I think that helps K-State tremendously because guess what? Kids are not going to want to go play in the SEC regardless of there's still going to be financial constraints. They're not just going to have an endless amount of money. Are they going to have more money? Sure. But what are you playing for? You're playing against each other. You're playing against your regional schools. You're not going to play against literally anybody else. So it's going to turn into it's a semi-professional league. And there is going to be kids who say, that's not something that I'm interested in. And there's going to be high-level kids that say that's not something I'm interested in. And so then that talent is going to get dispersed amongst the other institutions. So I think it only helps K-State. And I think the SEC leaving would be a major, major mistake. But I do think that if they leave, then it's just status quo. And even if the Big Ten goes, yeah, I think you stay right where you are until all the dust settles and they realize that that's a horrible idea and they beg the NCAA to come back. I just don't see any way that these conferences are self-sustained in the future with the financial landscape of college athletics.
Fitz, your question you posed to Cole, regardless of what I think Chris Kleiman would be absolutely fine with not being in that top group because look at what he did at North Dakota State. He won titles at maybe not the top level.
Nobody in North Dakota State in Fargo is sad about not winning the highest level. They won their level and they celebrate that.
Mm-hmm.
The really tough question here isn't if the Big Ten and SEC break off or the SEC breaks off. It's if they do decide to form the super conference and they start inviting in schools and they hand select 48, so you're at 34 right now so there's going to be 12 more and a good chunk of that's going to be ACC. I think K-State makes that cut at 48, going to be close. Do you say yes? Because if it's close, if you're literally one of the last 2 or 3 teams in, that means you're probably one of the lowest budgets to be let in. But I don't think that's going to happen, guys. I don't think they're going to invite anyone in. Why? Greed. That's all that they're about right now. They might invite some schools into their conference, but I think for the most part, the presidents and ADs are going to be like, quit watering down our payout. We want all the money for ourselves. We need it. We want it. We're going to squander it. We're going to hire too many staff and do stupid crap with it. We're going to sponsor a 20th sport. I don't see them inviting in other schools. I think we're going to have another wave of realignment. Well, we'll see all these conferences get to 20. I think the ACC's doomed. I just do. They've got enough desirable pieces that they're going to get rated. The Big 12 is immune. It's been inoculated for the most part. There might be a school or two someone wants to pillage to be number 20. But the big conferences view the Big 12 as we've taken all we want. We're going to go clean up with the ACC now and focus on that part of the country. Now, maybe there's a Utah. Kansas does fit the profile of the Big 10. Good in basketball. They could be Purdue in football and fit in. So maybe there would be Oklahoma State to the SEC. I don't know. But for the most part, I think those conferences are going to get to 20 using the ACC and say, enough. 16 wasn't manageable. 18 wasn't manageable. What are we doing going to 20, let alone 24? And at that point, if they both got 20, they'd break off with 40. But even if you're the SEC, 20 is enough to play games. Maybe if the SEC broke off all on their own, they'd go to 24. I don't know. It's an interesting question. And it's something I think Kansas State, as a athletic family, as a university, is going to have to decide. Are we willing and able to play up, to have the money, to have the support, to go compete at the highest levels? Because I don't have any interest in going back to K-State as K-State was, the tackling dummy of all of college football. And I don't think they would get to that point because of the way the budgets work now and you would be getting good players. I don't think that would happen. But someone has to lose the games. And I really think if the Big Ten and SEC are inviting anyone in the future, they're not wanting their members, their current members, let alone their original members, to lose the games. They want the newbies to lose. So it's going to be a big question for this entire fan base and athletic department and university family. What do you want? And I know a lot of people will say, we've got to play at the highest level or I'm not interested. I don't. If you're not interested in watching your team play and dominate whatever conference they're in, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. Any more?
Nope.
That's it?
You're on cleanup duty now.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm sure my spot shot is nice and soaked in. I got to go clean up some dog vomit, a way I never thought I would end the PowerCat podcast, but here we are, and here I go.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.